In this video, we're going to take a quick look at adding some JavaScript or adding logic to our web pages. But we're going to take a quick look at JavaScript, then we're going to take a quick look at something like how to add 3D to our web pages. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and type everything for you, so I'm going to give you guys access to some documents that you're going to want to download. And it's going to be inside the Google Drive, so what you want to look for is this renders scene folder. When you get the link, it's going to be in the comment section below or right below the description of the video. You go ahead and click on that and download this, and all the information will be there. So this is basically what I'm going to be working with during this video. One thing before we start though, I want you to be aware that if you don't have, like say, an development environment, right now I'm using Visual Studio Code. It's free, so you really should not have a problem with a development environment. But sometimes you don't want to have to download and install a development environment. Well, if that's the case, you can go to something like CodePen, or let's say even like brackets.com. So, well, brackets.io. You can go ahead here and use brackets.io. Now, this one is a download, but it's a light download. It doesn't take a whole bunch of space. Visual Studio Code doesn't take a lot of space either, but Brackets is one of those that are competing with Visual Studio Code in some way, shape, or form. And it's one of these modern open source text editors, just like what says at the top. So you may be more comfortable with something like this, but also you may be more comfortable with something like CodePen. And what CodePen is a website that actually gives you tons of examples of different people and organizations who are actually doing a lot of things with web technologies. And you can search, you can follow people. It's almost like the social media of coding. Now, when you open up your own project in CodePen, you can go ahead and start coding right off the bat without ever downloading anything. You can like pages, you can save pages. Right now, as you can see, it separates the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, and you can even download this and use these examples, or just start typing in here and use it as a console or use it as a code editor without ever downloading anything. It's easier to share this way, by the way, too, because once you're in here, you just simply give someone a link and they go to your CodePen page and they can see all the code that you're working with, especially when working with a team. So this is a really good resource to use. Another resource to know about once you get somewhat good at coding is this dev.to. And dev.to is a website where it actually gives you tips and a little bit of understanding on writing JavaScript, becoming a JavaScript developer, that sort of thing. So I think you want to look at this almost like the LinkedIn equivalent for developers. And you can kind of go through all these things and see what you like, see what you don't like, see what's new. Even if you don't understand what's going on, it's probably better to have a connection to what's actually going on. Maybe it's good to look at, and I'm not going through it in this. I just wanted to give you some insight as to some of the things you might want to be aware of as you move forward in your coding adventure. So the first thing we're going to do is open up Visual Studio Code or whatever code editor you're using. And I'm going to do this just a little bit in reverse, just so you can see exactly how this works. So I have Visual Studio Code open over here on my right-hand side. I could do all this inside of Visual Studio Code, by the way. I just want to do it over here. I'm going to go on my right-hand side, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it whatever my website is, because we're actually going to make a quick example, some JavaScript example that you can easily find on the web, but we're just going to break it down so we have understanding. And then I can just drag this over here. Another way to do this, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go open folder. From here, I can go directly to my desktop. From here, I can now create all the folders that I need. So this is just another way of doing exactly the same thing. And I'm going to select that folder. And now I am inside of that folder. I didn't make the JS folder because maybe I'm just for demonstration purposes, we'll do all of this inside of one file. I didn't create a file because I can do all that here inside of inside of code. So over here, I can right click here and go to new file. And now I just need to name that file, and I'll just call that index.html. once I put .html, what code did was automatically down here convert it to an HTML file. But if it doesn't do that for you, you can go down here and select this and choose what kind of file format that you want. So here I'm going to start my structure for my HTML. It's pretty boilerplate stuff. So that's my declaration that's going to tell the browser that we're intending to use HTML5, because if I'm not using HTML5, that really doesn't do anything. The website will work without that up at the top. Now I have my HTML tags, and inside the HTML tags I have the body. And then after that I have H2 or H1, so this is just a header. I'm gonna leave that on the same line, and I'm gonna indent this by hitting tab over here, so that way I know the format is very important. Right now this body and this HTML is on the same level. This is not what you want. You're gonna want this body pushed over because it's inside the HTML, and you want this H2 because it's inside the body pushed over as well. So from here I am going to tab over. So this header right here, this is where I'm going to put my title. So a lot of times what I like to do is I like to see it actually work. So if you looked at the previous video, I installed a plugin that allows me to right click here and view this in the browser. If you don't have this, then you need to go back to that video, or go back to a video that actually shows you how to install this plugin. Basically, you just go to the plugins and then the extension, sorry, and then you're going to search for view in browser. You're just going to search for that and you're just going to install it. That's all the video shows you how to do. So once I have this, I'm going to right click and I'm going to not that one, this one right here. Right click and view in browser. Once that happens, with that I can go ahead and maybe make some sort of paragraph tag. Let's just do it like most of it. I'm gonna give that paragraph tag an ID, and I'm gonna call it demo. Now that ID is important because that ID will allow us to access this area of the code. All right, so this is, you got to see this almost like a box, and in order to know what's in that box, or to tell somebody to get the box, let's say if you had 1,000 boxes, in order to tell somebody to get the P box, because this is a box, this is a P box, okay? Think about it that way. That doesn't sound too good, does it? Well, just think of it as a box, all right? And we named that box demo, and that's what that ID means. Inside that box is this text. See it that way. You can also see this H2 as a box, right? It just doesn't have an ID. So it's just like every other H2 box. Now, what I want to be able to do, I'm going to add JavaScript code directly inside of the browser. Now, this is not the way this should be done all the time, especially for any professional site, but it does state the case as to how JavaScript works. So I'm going to go ahead and add myself a button and then type, it's going to be a button. And I want to call the on-click action to that button. Now, I want this to be in single quotes, and then I'm going to access the DOM, sorry. So what's the DOM? Well, the DOM is the structure of your web browser. So you have this address bar over here, you have this staging area over here, and there's different elements of a browser. And then inside the browser is all the elements that make up the content, the HTML, that sort of stuff. If you really want to get a good sense of the DOM, what you can do is go to something like any page, actually. All right, so this is somepage.com. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F12, and as you can see on the right-hand side, in Chrome, and even in Internet Explorer, there's this element that opens up and it breaks down the DOM. So you see here, you have all this stuff here. You can actually even code in here. We'll talk about using this as a utility later. But for right now, you can see I have the body tag here. And as I scroll down, I can see the script. I can see the whole structure of the web page, just like our web page, how we have our HTML, we have our header here, or our head. We have the body here. When I close up that body, you can see that it encapsulates everything in there. I can edit this as HTML. I could delete elements. Now, really, I'm not changing this page. I'm just changing my view of the page when you're editing something like this. But it really does give you a sense of how everything is actually working. You can even duplicate certain things and styles and stuff that's inside certain page. Well, what do I mean? Well, now, the site automatically breaks up the styles for you. See, it says DOM breakpoints here. We don't have any breakpoints, but if we did, they'll all be here. We have event listeners, the click listeners, and all that sort of stuff. And we have our styles here that's broken down. We can even change some of these or take some of these out just to see how the website looks. If I want to go deeper into this, I can go ahead and click on the styles link here, and it will open up the full structure of the styles format here. Okay, so here's all the styles that this page is using. Now, whether you got into styles or not, just understand that the beautification of the website is predicated on how the styles are written. And later on, I'll make a video on styles if you haven't seen that yet. All right, so that is the DOM, and that is the structure of every website, basically. It's the same structure as our website. If I hit F12 on our website, we're going to get the same thing. As you can see, we have our HTML tag up here, right? And that covers everything. And then we have our body tag, which you can see how it breaks it down within these colors. So we can edit the CSS. We can go up in here and we can test out our website right inside the browser. So every website has these, including ours, including a blank page, by the way, because it's part of the DOM. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward from there. So now I'm going to go ahead and add this button click, and I'm going to click on type document dot get element by ID, and then I'm going to put in my demo. Now remember, this could be anything. I can say message A. Now if I did that, I got to make sure that I put that in here, and this is why I use single quotes, because in here I'm going to use double quotes. So from there, I'm gonna, once I access that item, this right here, now I want to get access to the text inside the item. So I would say get element by ID, which is this element here, and I give it that name. And then I want to go inside of here. And the way I do that is with what's called dot notation. So I'm going to hit dot, and then I'm going to type inner HTML. Now I want to change that inner HTML to something, and I'm going to change it to hello world, here is my story. All right, so one thing you will notice is every time I do something that requires quotes, I always make the double quotes first, then I go inside the quotes. If I'm doing single quotes, I always make the single quotes first, then I go inside the quotes, because that actually prevents you from having a lot of errors later on. Now that I have this, I can go ahead and close this button. And inside that button, I want to say click. So this is going to be the label of the button itself. Or show story, or door 1, or whatever. So now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and close this by hitting the F12 again, and I'm going to refresh this, and there you have it. You have your JavaScript embedded into there, and now I'm going to hit show story, and as you can see, it changed the story. And you can do this as many times as you want. It's a really good idea to kind of test these things out. However, because they all access the same thing, it'll almost look like A, B, and C are just being edited by one button from the same spot. So when I refresh this, you can see this, and A, B, C, plus that story. And as you can actually imagine this being doors, or you can actually imagine this being items in the shopping cart. You can actually imagine this being menu items. Maybe you want the menu item to do something other than send you to another page, because you can actually redirect people to another page and do some calculations at the same time, except you'd want the calculations done first. So, but we have links for that. That's unnecessary. So there's a lot that you can do. The main thing here is to really understand what's happening here. So let's say if I wanted to add another title here, another box, right? I just have to give it another name. So I'm going to say B, right? Message B. And I'm going to allow this message, this to be message B here. Where is B? Oh, here it is. So that's going to be message B. I'm going to save that. So now when I hit B, it should change the other one. This is another. All right, so I'm going to refresh that. Now you see that this is another. It's going to change that one, A, and it changed it. This is another, and so on and so forth. Now you can also add this to where it's changing images, hiding images, showing like a slideshow of some kind. But the main thing here is to understand how JavaScript is actually working. Basically, we write some code, right? We created a button, and this button is not JavaScript per se. This button is HTML. So we have HTML here. We tell it what type of button we want. We give it an action, because all buttons have an action. That's how buttons work inside of HTML. And then here's our JavaScript right there. Just that part is our JavaScript, and it's embedded in our code. And the only thing that this JavaScript does, and let me remove all of this so it doesn't get too cluttered. The only thing that this JavaScript does is it accesses the document, this document here. Then it goes to get the element by ID, and these tags have elements in there. So like this P tag has an ID in there, and it says message A. And so that's how we get these IDs, and that's what the IDs are for. I can add an ID to anything. Let's say H2, right? I'm going to add an ID to that. I'm gonna name that also message A. And so let's see what happens from there. So I just gave anything an ID, anything within these tags, right? So I'm gonna hit Control S, refresh, and then when I hit that, as you can see, it changed that as well. If you really wanted to have a lot of information inside of something, you probably use another kind of box called a div. So I'm just going to call this a div, and this is a blank box, right? And this blank box can be called anything I want. And divs are especially important because when we start getting more into CSS, we're going to be using a lot of divs. So I'm just going to take this name from here, and I'm going to put it in the div. So the only thing I would have to do to make this work is not actually have two of these with the same name. Let me change this to C, and I'll change this to C, and you'll see that this will react exactly the same way inside of the div. Refresh that. And as you can see, it changes everything just the same. So this video has gone on a little bit long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video here. And in the next video, let's take this same document here. Let's take a quick look at how we can do this also with images. And then let's go ahead and look at a much more complex one where we're going to download the code and we're going to look at adding 3D using JavaScript. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Also, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share this video, and make sure you comment in the comment section below if you have any questions. I'll see you guys then. Bye.